Hi, my name is Roni Size and welcome to BPM.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's put some bass on it, represent. Come on, bass. Ow! All right, let's put some future on it. Let's futurize it. Come on. This one goes around and around.
Good afternoon to all of us. We're gonna have a journey for 2 hours, talk about some music, inspirations, friends, communities, and what will come will come.
Okay, cool.
And then I think we're gonna make some music, or you're gonna show us some music. And let's start.
Okay, well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me. My first time in Israel, and yeah, this is an occasion that I'm sure we're going to enjoy, and I'm going to remember this for a long time to come. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. So let's start with, if you can tell us about some background of your neighborhood in Bristol, parents, friends, how it all started.
That's a lot of questions. A lot of questions to go there. For those who don't know, I'm from Bristol. It's a small little place in England, about 2 hours from London. It has a great history, tradition of music, from jazz, from reggae music, from the sound system culture. I've been lucky enough to be brought up there, you know, through the best part of all my life. Going to some great events, going to St. Paul's Carnival where I was schooled, and I learned about the history of bass music, and you know, I just learned about, you know, what it is to be a part of a culture. For those who don't know, I'm half Jamaican. I got a background of being brought up by a family who were Jamaican, and also, you know, being a part of a family which was well educated in music. I had 2 brothers. One was into hip hop and soul and funk. The other brother was into reggae music, and you know, both of them amalgamated together, and you know, out of that was born Roni Size.
Can you tell us about your studies, or your like life as a student? 16, 17, 15?
Yeah, well, I went to a school which really didn't care about music, and unfortunately, I left school with no qualifications. So I'm a class example of the boy that's supposed to do bad, you know, done good. I kind of ended up finding my own route. I went to a place called Sefton Park Youth Centre. Now, this place was like the BPM of today, but back in the day when, you know, I was 16, I was looking for somewhere to inspire me. I was looking for people to inspire me. And this building became my home. School was rubbish. It didn't, you know, see eye to eye with me. Every time I went to school, I found myself just getting bored, getting in trouble. And it was like, you know what, I cannot stay in this place anymore. So I just stopped going to school. I went to this place called the Sefton Park Basement. It was a youth club. It took people like me, rather than saying that you have to do this, it said, what do you want to do? And it was like, cool, well, I want to play basketball. So they bought a basketball. Started playing with the basketball. After a little while, got bored. What do you want to do now? I was like, well, you know, I want to try dancing. So they made a place where you can go and start dancing. So we started break dancing, keying the floor, did a few head spins, didn't really like it, hurt my back, and that was that. So after that, you know, it was just in the day and age when electronic music just started to happen. So then they said, so what do you want to do now? I goes, well, I really like music. So they went out and bought some Technics 1200 turntables. And I started scratching, I started playing around with lots of old records, and, you know, just like, you know, saw some old films, like Wild Star was a great film. Grandmaster Flash had 2 copies of some break beats, and he was cutting them up, and, you know, so they bought the turntable. I scratched the back out of the turntable till I could scratch no more. And then basically, you know, I wanted to move on. So I couldn't afford a drum machine at this time. So the basement then did a raffle, and they bought a drum machine. once I learned how to use the drum machine, I learned the drum machine inside out. I made beats, reggae beats, I made hip hop beats. It was a little RX-17 drum machine. And you know, the sounds on there, the cowbell was about the only good thing on there. Gung, 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 gung. That was the only good thing on the drum machine, was the cowbell. So after a while, you know, I was playing around with the drum machine, and kids would come down from upstairs and say, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just making music on the drum machine." They were like, "Okay," but they went back upstairs and started playing basketball. And I was like, "Cool, you do that." Then the next thing they did, they bought a sampler. Now this was an Akai S900 back in the day. For those who don't know what a sampler is, and I'm sure you all do know what a sampler is, but it was a big clunky machine with floppy disk, and you put the disc in, and you know, you'd be able to like sample bits of the records. So the records that I was scratching, and then the records that I would just sample, and before you knew it, you know, buy like an Atari 1040 ST, which was the computer of the day. There's like, you know, I used a Mac. Back then it was an Atari 1040 ST computer. So with these three elements, I had the drum machine, I had the Akai S900, and then a Technics 1200, and the Atari, put that all together, and then start to make beats. And that's how I kind of really started. Then my brother kind of got involved and started to buy bits of equipment, and it just grew from there on. You buy sequencers, and you buy, you know, extra bits of MIDI equipment, keyboards, and you just build it up, and you don't really know what you're doing. Back in those days, you're plugging stuff in and you're trying stuff out, and you know, I was fortunate that I had two great brothers who would, you know, somehow generate some money, go out, get these bits of equipment, and when they went out, I used to sneak in their rooms, just run behind in their decks, have a little go on their decks, have a go on their studio, you know, and when they come home, I have to sneak out, turn everything off, and then run back downstairs, so. But I hope you guys understand my English, yeah? You know, I hope you guys can hear where I'm coming from. But yeah, this is quite in-depth. I enjoy talking about my history. You know, it's been for me, it's been a great road, and from where I'm standing, you know, I'm only halfway to where I'm trying to get to. So just to give you guys a little bit about where I'm coming from and where I've come from is, you know, for me, quite overwhelming to be here in Israel, you know, for people who actually want to hear about what I want to talk about. So, you know, I hope you guys are going to enjoy some of the little anecdotes that I have for you and bring forward.
You talked about the youth center or the youth club. It was a significant moment for you.
Absolutely.
To be there?
Yeah, you know, and being in this youth club, what happened for me was, you know, I was making music downstairs by myself, and then the kids upstairs were coming down, and eventually two of the kids were like MCs, and they were like rappers or singers, and they would come and I'd say, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm doing this, da, da, da." And before I knew it, I found myself teaching like the kids how to make, you know, music, or trying to get them to, you know, get involved with their vocal delivery, or if they could play drums, come in, play drums. If they could come and play bass, come and play bass. And, you know, eventually we started to take that out of the basement. It's called the Basement Studios in Bristol, but now is run by Bristol Arts Council as well, in Bristol. And it was important because we took it out on the road. We took it all over Bristol and then outside of Bristol as well, to the surrounding areas. So, you know, it was interesting. It was like a mobile BPM, basically, where we would go out and we would show people how we did the shit back then.
What age did you, back in the days, you was 16?
Yeah, 17? So from about 16, between 16 and 18, I basically just, you know, kind of just left school and just educated myself musically. And then I used to go to a lot of parties, and I was still quite young, so I used to have to sneak into these parties and watch Wild Bunch and, you know, who were now called Massive Attack, and all the reggae sound systems. I used to sneak in there just before the doors opened, hide behind the speakers, and then hopefully when the lights came on, I would come out, and then I would stay in there for like an hour, and then the security would probably come and find me and say, "Look, get out, you're too young." So.
We heard about a lot about the Wild Bunch. Yesterday, Matt Black was here.
Yeah, man.
He was talking about the Wild Bunch, how they influenced the London scene.
Wild Bunch were exceptional. There was Nelly Hooper, who was involved in Soul to Soul, and he was the brains, the producer behind Soul to Soul. And Wild Bunch for me were like the pinnacle. There was like 4 crews, and they would play music that no one else had. And it was back in the days where you used to get the record labels and you just scratch it out so no one could see it, so no one could see the label. So we would all run around London looking for these tunes that we could never find. Do you know what I mean? And like, if you got a chance, you could see the label. First thing a DJ would do was like, no. And I love that school of like, you know, having something that only you have, no one else has that. You know, that's like the dub plate. You know, a dub plate is a 10-inch or 12-inch piece of metal which you cut music to, and you know, you go out and people come and see you play because only you and you have that piece of music. And that's what Wild Bunch were about, and they would be able to go all over the world and just do this effortlessly. You know, it was easy and it was great to watch. Watching Milo, watching Nelly Scratch, and then there was 3D on the mic, and there was a lot of other crews as well, like City Rockers, and there was like Raiders 30. You know, Bristol's got a massive like history of, you know, all that sound system culture. It was a great time to be, you know, but I don't often go back there. You know, I don't talk about it that often anymore. You know, this is the first time I've actually sat here and spoke in person about some of these events for a long time. You know, but it was my school, and you know, it's like it'll never happen again. Not the way that it happened back then, so.
Can you talk about some artists back then that you really liked? Or
yeah,
which music that you
well,
grew up on?
I come from a school where, you know, I used to stay at home because I was too young to go out and listen to Michael Jackson's album Off the Wall on repeat over and over again, because that was the only kind of music that was even close to, you know, being dance music at the time. And then we used to tune into like radio stations, and I remember tuning to Radio Luxembourg, and there was a reggae show on there by David Rodigan, and I remember he had this sound clash where he was in Jamaica, and this is like a one-off event, and he was playing all this digital reggae music. It's a tune called Slang Tang. I don't even know if you know this tune, but it's a tune called the Slang Tang, and he was playing this, and that was the birth to me of like the digital age of music. And it was David Rodigan's he's a white dude. He's about 50 years old now. If you saw him, you would be like, no way, this guy. You'd be like, no chance. You should Google this guy, David Rodigan, see him on stage. But this guy is the Dan. He's the main guy. He educated me about bassline. So for me, like I remember it was rap. It was rap music first, and then it became hip hop. And as soon as hip hop came in, it was like Malcolm McLaren, started to use it with Buffalo Girls, and then it just started to just filter in. Slowly it became more hip hop, but I remember it being rap music first and foremost, Wild Style. There's a movie called Babylon as well, which is a great movie, reggae culture movie, brilliant movie, fantastic.
It's an old school movie.
Old school movie, Babylon and Wild Style. They're two great pieces of footage which basically represent me from the waist up, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so I was kind of influenced, and then, you know, I remember it was just, you know, hip hop, anything that was hip hop, I would just go out and I'd just buy that. Then in funk and soul records.
Samples of it?
All day long, you know, sampling, you know, that was it. We went out, we had, you know, we managed to make £1,000 from doing gigs. We went out, we bought a sampler. What do? You sample everything. You sample your mum's records, your dad's records. You sampled whatever you could sample and you make the most of it. 13.4 seconds, and you have to make 2 tunes out of that. That's what it used to be. And it was like, nowadays you could just go on forever, and you kind of overproduce your music because you've got too much, there's almost too much there. You can keep going, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, you know, back in the day, it was 13.4 seconds, you put in a bass, you put in a kick, you put in a vocal, you put in a hi-hat, and you were done.
Simplicity.
So it was simplicity, so, you know, it was, we were limited to what we could do back in the day. But, you know, as time went on, I remember I used to go out to these youth clubs with the Basement Project. We used to go out, and then we started seeing these kids coming in from the weekend, and they were a little bit high, their eyes were a bit big, and I was like, what's these kids? You know, and they would come with these tapes, and then they just put these tapes in, and I started to hear all these like, you know, I was like, what on earth is this? You know what I mean? And then in the middle of all these just weird beats, the breaks would drop and the bass line would drop, and I was like, so I could hear what was going on from these kids who were coming in from the youth clubs after the weekend. And I was like, oh, well, I don't like that part, but I like that part in the middle. So if you take away all the stuff which is like which sounded just terrible, do you know what I mean? And just take out all the rolling breaks and the rolling bass line, to me that was like the birth of where the music started to take shape. You take out the rubbish, keep the parts that you like. And it was being around this younger generation of kids that you actually begin to hear what was going on through all these illegal raves. People would go out and, you know, they would stand on the rooftop of their cars and listen to hear if they can hear the music in the distance, and they'd all drive there and you get there and it'd be like 10,000 people in the field. It's like, it was really crazy, you know, but just seeing, for me, you know, I went to some of these parties, but, you know, for me, seeing, you know, the kids come back and seeing the excitement that they had, and obviously there was some drugs involved, whatever, do you know what I mean? But it was like hearing the music that was, you know, catching their vibe.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like really early experimenting.
It was at the time when I was like doing my youth work, and I wasn't really going out. I wasn't partying or nothing. I was just doing my youth work, and then I would just, you know, go back to the studio. It was my school. That was between 18 and 20, 21, 22. I was just literally just non-stop, just education in music.
As we listen to your like early youth listening to music, or which kind of background you have in music, what's your music today? What do you like today? Well,
yeah, that's a big step. That's a big step. You know, I feel like now that I've learned so much about the industry, you know, I could sit down and talk about what I've learned all day. But just to, you know, just to sum it up, really, from being just, you know, a kid who loves music to being someone who now has, you know, become a DJ, become a performer in a live band, who has done a numerous amount of live shows on major festivals and major stages, and, you know, run a record label with partners, being involved in a major industry, being part of Talking Loud and Universal, and just learning how the industry works. Especially in the UK, the industry moves so fast. It's incredible the speed, the way that it's become a digital industry. It's just, you know, it blows my mind. 1 minute we're selling vinyls, next minute we're not. Do you know what I mean? MP3s become like the new way forward, but now MP3s is, you know, out the window. It's about how you sell your music and who you sell it to, and to the people that you, you know, trying to keep the people that are really into you, your core database, your core support. So, but musically, you know, I'll always be a DJ. Even when I'm 90 years old, you know what I mean? I will still be DJing. I will DJ until I can no longer DJ no more. Do you know what I mean? As a performer in a live band, I think is, you know, it's a shame for me to say it, but to play on the big stages, you have to have a great amount of money. We have an 8-piece live band, and I'm sure you all know that your drummer, Yuval, who I met in New York a long time ago, my drummer Yuval, yeah. He's from Jerusalem, and he's a great part of my band, and he's been a massive inspiration to me as well. You know, a great friend, and someone who has been a part of my setup for a long time. So, you know, being on the stage and playing with a live band is everything for me. It's like, you know, it's like having your finger on the detonate button. You know, when you drop that bass line and those drums and everything syncs together, that's what it is for me. So my music is basically, you know, my aim is to get right back into the mix and to be live again on stage. But as for now, DJing is fantastic.
You're listening today, except of like your DJ music?
Yeah, do you know,
albums?
Yeah, one of your sacrifices, you know, being a musician and being someone that's, you know, so into music, is that in your spare time you don't listen to music. You know, it's just one of those sacrifices you make. It's like, you know, your job away. But I like my slow jams. I love a little bit of slow jams. I love all that stuff, you know. And I like my reggae music. I like my bashment. You know what I'm saying? And I do enjoy, you know, listening to hearing new music. I don't go out to like raves and don't go to dubstep gigs or whatever, and I don't really go out and party anymore. I'm a bit older now. You know what I mean? You know, I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm a bit older now. So, you know. But I try to keep my ear to the ground, you know, and I try to make these things here last for as long as I can. So I wear earplugs, ear defenders, and make sure that I don't damage my ears, because that's the last thing I want to do. So I'm very like aware when I go out, the systems take out that 8K or shelve out certain frequencies. You know, it's quite important. But yeah, I'm a great music lover. Probably I listen to, at the moment, I've got a mixture of stuff on on my laptop, which I like to listen to. But I've always got to be in tune to what's going on in the scene. Any DJ, any master of, you know, of the arts, you have to be in tune to what's going on. You have to have your ear to the ground at all times.
I can say, me as a DJ today, I'm listening to more albums today, or going back into the 20s, to the 30s.
To the 20s and 30s, you said?
Yeah.
I got a gramophone at home when I play some of that. Claire de Lorraine is about as far back as I'll go, but you're good.
So today you're like your musical journey beside your DJ skills or job. You still listen to albums today?
Yes, you know, it's very hard to find an album that you can listen to from the beginning to the end. I'll always go back to something that I know. You know what I mean? Like an old Bob James album or something like that. Just something that I know, really. You know what I mean? Or I'll just listen to, you know, a compilation, really. That's why I like compilations. I like it today that you can build your own album. You can go online, you can just go like that. I love that. That's my album. So your shuffle is your album, right? You know what I mean? Your playlist, everyone builds their own playlist.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a tune to play. I bet here today you could all play me a tune. You could, oh yeah, you should listen to this record. Oh, I love this record. So, you know, the taste varies, doesn't it?
There is a moment in your time or history that you said to yourself, this is the music that I want to make. It was jungle, it was drum and bass. What was the moment? Tell us about this moment.
Yeah, it's crazy because
I want this.
I never chose it. The music chose me. It was as simple as that because I was just making music at the time. And then at that time when I was making music, UK never really had its own sound. It always copied what America did. Every single time it just copied what happened in America or Jamaica. And then eventually UK, it started to breed its own music. You know, they started to put UK on the front of everything. So it was like garage, okay, UK garage. It's like hip hop, okay, UK hip hop. Do you know what I mean? And there was just nothing really out there. We were just copying everyone else until eventually, you know, people just started to come up with names. You know what I mean? It was like, I think it was, you know, jungle techno, and then it just became jungle. And then I loved the sound, but the name was kind of, you know, it just like kind of just kept it in one box. And then when it became drum and bass, that was when I became associated with drum and bass. The crossover was really, really different. So what happened was, and this is quite interesting, back in the day, the music was all chopped up and it sounded really just kind of off but on. You know, it sounded quite messy, but it sounded great in places. And then eventually what happened was the kick and the snare, like in house music, boom, 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 boom. The kick and the snare went boom, cat, boom, cat, boom, cat. And that's when it became drum and bass. And all the sounds on top started to change. The musicality started to enter. And the keyboards and the songs, and that's when it changed from jungle, where it was just before, just boom, all that kind of stuff, and it just changed over, and it happened overnight. So I was never really associated with being a junglist, even though I am a junglist. You know what I mean? In my heart, I'm a junglist, but it became drum and bass, and that's where the music chose me. I was just making music at that time when the music crossed over to become drum and bass, and it was not just me, but it was the Goldies, and it was the LTJ Bookhams, and it was the Dillingers, and it was the Doc Scotts, and I could go through the longest list of every single name, the Adamass, and you know, all the people that, you know, helped to generate. But we had a fortunate event where we were put into the spotlight, where we won an award. We didn't plan to win an award. It was just something that happened, and it just opened up. It was at the time when the music was, you know, it was growing, but then overnight it just kind of just blew up. And Represent and the rest of my crew, like Suv, Die, and DJ Crust, and Only and Dynamite, we were all a unit together. So, you know, I'm assuming here that a lot of people do know little bits about what I've done, but if you don't know, it's not just about me. I was part of a crew, I was part of a great team, and we all come from the same place, and we was all on the same page. And when we got sprung into the spotlight, it was very unexpected, and it was great, and I love that. but it was something that, it was like getting on the ball and grabbing the ball by the horns and going, let's go. And that's what we did. And the machine just started to roll. Like before that, the record company wasn't really interested in what we were doing. They didn't even realize I was signed to their label. You know, it was like, I'd signed my deal with Talking Loud, Universal did whatever. As soon as we won the American Music Prize, TV adverts, this, that, the other. And it was great, it was nice to be loved, but it was a little bit as well, you know, an education. Whereas now, I'm a bit older, I know how to make this work, in, you know, because I'm a producer, I'm not a vocalist, so I'm never going to go out there and start singing songs, you know, and I'm never going to change what I do, but record companies do try to change you. I don't give a damn what you say. If you sign to my record company and I don't like what you're doing, I will try to change you too. That's just the way it is. That's the way that it all works. It's like everybody wants to put their 2 pence in. You put 2 pence in, you get 2 pence out. Simple as that. So I mean, so you contribute, you make things work, and then you make it work as a team. And that's what the Represent philosophy was back then. We did it as a team. So, you know, that's when it became, for me, it just elevated. And now you have like, you know, modern day Represents like Rudimental, who are doing fantastically well. You know what I mean? And I love what they're doing, but the model was set quite a long time ago. So, you know, I hope I'm not just baffling on here, but I'm trying to just, you know, give you guys an emotional plea about where I come from and just letting you know that it's, you know, it's an interesting world out there. So if you're looking to get out there, you know, be prepared, man, because it's a good roller coaster. It's a good ride.
If you're talking about inspirations, let's talk about challenges. Can you tell us about some challenges that you have in the road, on your road?
I'll tell you what's a challenge. This is a great challenge. You know, coming to somewhere like Israel and sit in front of an audience of, you know, 30 people and talking about, you know, about my life, it's quite a great challenge. And then have to go back to the hotel and get my set ready for tonight as well. That's a great challenge, but that's what I do every week. This is what I do every week. Every weekend, this is what I do. You know, I travel the world, DJing in front of audiences, playing new music, trying not to compromise my sound too much, but play the room and be aware of exactly who my audience is and hoping that I can give something back. You know, I'm making, I've just finished a new Represent album and I can't wait. I would love to have come here where you guys had the new album, then you guys could have listened to it and then you guys could have come and you'd have like, oh, you know, I like that song. And the feedback is great. So my challenge is to just, you know, I feel like I'm on my second wind. You know, I've had the first part of my career and now I'm going into my twilights, my twilight of my career. I'm now moving into my second mode. And I'm looking forward to putting out this new album. I'm now starting a new label. I've got my own label. I've got my own, new label. I've got a new team of people around me. Challenges is being a part of a team that understand who you are and where you come from. Challenges, making sure that you can have one-on-ones with people and you're on the same page, and your management is a challenge, and to be able to sustain these relationships over a long period of time and to be successful musically. So that, to me, those are my new challenges. And it may sound boring, but you know, when you get out into the big world, that's what it is. That's just what it is. So I'm looking forward to tonight. You know, tonight's going to be interesting. I've heard so much about the block. That they keep on telling me that this is the best sound system. I'm going to be blown away by the sound system. So, you know, I can't wait to like test drive it tonight. I'll tell you what we talk about is how the way that we make music has changed a little bit. I think that the way that music now is changed. My life is the way that you make it. It's like back in the day, you know, it used to take hours and hours and days and nights to make music. Nowadays, you can make an, you know, if you know how, you can make like 4 or 5 tracks in a day. Whereas back in the day, you couldn't do that. With the technology that we have today, you know, you can now, you know, load up a session, you can load up some banks, and everything is kind of just laid out for you. Whereas back in the day, you would have to kind of just do that. So now you can move a lot quicker. The trick is to not get bored, for me. And I know a lot of producers who just got bored of making music and just said, hung their gloves up, just said, you know what? And that changed my life, in the sense that I find now really hard to be inspired. You know what I mean? My favorite artists, some of my favorite producers are now no longer making music. You know, people just hang on their gloves because they're not being inspired because of the technology. I think technology is great, but at the same time, it's a little bit, it makes it, the attention span a little shorter than what it used to be. We used to spend like hours on a kick drum. Do you know what I mean? All day finding the right kick drum and the right hi-hat and the right snare. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you talk about a Roni Size track, it was always about the snare. Like, yeah, it's a Roni snare. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but nowadays you load up a patch, you download about 1,000 snares and they're all there for you, and it's quite easy, you know. Granted that if you go through, you will see one that says Bristol snare, which is probably a Roni snare, which, you know, I take that with pride. But a lot of my favorite producers, you know what I mean, who are really creative, are no longer making music. Like, they probably still are, but they're not as prolific as they used to be. And I think that's, you know, I don't want to be in that bracket. I want to be making music every day. You know, even when I'm in my bed, I'm sitting down on my laptop, you know, I'm you know, tweaking stuff all the time. I'm never stop. You know, first thing I do when I get up in the morning is like, think about a bass line. That's just the way it is, that's just what I do. You know what I mean? Bass comes first.
Can you tell us about how you prepare yourself before you DJ or making music? Do you prepare yourself before that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in the process at the moment of doing like 2 remixes, which I have to finish by Monday. I've been thinking about that all morning. And you know, for DJing, it's funny because I come from this place where we started off with turntables, and then as soon as I started to use Serato. And as soon as I started to use Serato, I remember the whole drum and bass scene looked at me and was like, no, 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 no. And now the whole drum and bass scene, everyone uses Serato. And it was crazy, the amount of like shit that you get for like crossing the boundaries of technology or pushing the boundaries. Got a lot of shit from coming from dub plates to, you know, vinyl, going over, where now it's like, I've not even seen a Technics 1200 for ages, do you know what I mean? I'm using now USB sticks, which is thumb drives. It's quite, you know, it's quite soulless, but as a DJ who's a traveling DJ, it's very useful to be able to access your music, all your music, very easily. But that transformation, you know, if something else comes along where I don't even need sticks, and where I can just like tap in something and it just goes to my database and it's floating in the air somewhere, I'll use that as well. You know, I will keep going until the technology tells me to stop. But that whole school coming from like turntables, and I see you guys do you guys use the turntable here? Does anyone use it? No? But does anyone use this? Yeah, you use this. Do you use it with the CDs in, or do you use a stick? Yeah, USB. You see, now, you know, it's like not even having the CDs. It's like back in the day when we used to use vinyl, it was so heavy to push. Imagine it was 12-inch dub plates. You'd have to do this. 1, 2, and then push it off and hope you get it in time, and that was hard work. And then it would jump because it was scratched so easy. And same with the vinyl and the feedback that you used to get, you know, from the rumble of the bass. So when this came in, now the sound changed, a lot harsher, but you get that 20 hertz now. You get 20 hertz, whereas before you'd have to cut this down but at 60 at least. So now you're getting more sub and maybe a little bit more highs, like right up in like the 30Ks. It's real harsh. Do you understand these numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah? As long as you guys are not like going over your head, you know. And it's important because now the music's louder. But now, before when CDs started, it was kind of going one way, and it was too harsh, and everyone was limiting. But now everyone's like, okay, you know what, not so much limiting. And now the sound is and now with the USB keys, it's a lot better. So I prep every day, my laptop, straight away, take the key, go through, I master some stuff in Pro Tools. I use Pro Tools. I'm trying to go to Pro Tools 11, but I'm not ready yet. So, what's the majority here? Is it Logic or is it Cubase?
Cubase.
Is Cubase here, right? Yeah. I like Cubase. You know, I've kind of tried to learn every single different machine. So I use a bit of Cubase, I can use a bit of Logic, I use a bit of this, use a bit of that. I think it's good to use a bit of everything. Ableton, I think they're all different. They all bring something to the table. That's what I believe. I don't think one's better than the other. So. That's my personal opinion.
I think what I meant in this question is like if you before you DJing, you prepare yourself or about
mentally.
your thoughts, mentally or feelings or what you wanna like deliver in this set. Or
sometimes
music.
Sometimes you don't have time to mentally prepare yourself. You get straight off the plane, and you have to go straight to the gig. So you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, like the DJing side of things. It's been 20 years. And yeah, you know, you play the room. You go there, you look at you try to get eye contact, and you know, you look at the people that get what you're about, and then you try to play for that one person. But no matter what, sometimes you'll go out there, and if you get one person who's not dancing, you can have 20,000 people dancing, getting down, but you see the one person not dancing or unhappy, you'll remember that person forever. It doesn't matter, the 20,000, you don't give a damn. But the one person, and you'll just come away feeling like, damn. It's you know.
This is on the DJ tip and the music tip,
yeah.
Musical production tip?
Well, musical production tip is like, it's a lot harder, because you put an album out there, first it's my album, at the moment it's still my album, but then it becomes your album, you put it out there. And then it's open for criticism. Simple as that. You know, you get reviews, they start putting like 4 out of 10, or 2 out of 10, or 9 out of 10. You know, it doesn't matter, it's no longer your album, it becomes the general public's music.
I understand.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that approach where you live with something for so long, which is yours, and then eventually you go somewhere and you'll be in a venue somewhere, and your record will come on, my record will come on, and someone will jump and go, yeah, this is my tune, this is my tune. I'm like, actually no, it's my tune. Do you know what I mean? But my point is that someone adopts your tune to be in their tune. Oh, this is my music, oh, this is my tune. So, like I said, as soon as you put music out, you know what I mean, as soon as you let it go out to the general public, it's no longer yours. You know what I mean? It's like having your baby and just, go on then, go and play. Simple as that.
What I understand is like you put your feelings and thoughts and will to this album, and then it's getting like grounded by listening to it.
Yeah, you have to have a thick skin in the industry of music, because like even if I come and listen to one of your records, you play me a beat that you've got over there, and I say yeah, sounds good, but it's a bit straight away you get this feeling, whereas criticism. And you have to be able to take that in the music industry, even in sports, in football. You know, oh, he made the wrong pass. You know, if football players could hear the commentary, there would be so much bullshit going on. So yeah, you have to have a thick skin in this industry. I believe you have to have that. And you know, I feel like now, maybe there was a time when I wasn't great at taking criticism. But now I'm a bit older and I can take it. I can take so much. Do you know what I mean? So you guys will go away from here today and they'll go, oh, what was it like having a one-on-one with Ron? And you go, ah. We go, ah. But you know, as long as I don't hear about it, I'm all right.
Can you tell us about, in your perspective, how did drum and bass or jungle contribute to the world?
Yeah, you know what? That's a bloody good question. Bloody good question. It is so funny, man, because when you say the world, I look at it like this, right? As soon as major producers in America started to hear this music, forget the general public, the producers listen to it first. The drummers, all the drummers I know listen to this music, come to me first. In any major band, in Coldplay, all these bands, they used to come, and the drummer used to come to me, say, oh yeah, I like the beats, because that's what they used to hear. So that was the first thing. But all the producers, and then Rodney Jerkins started to mess about with a couple of shuffles, Timbaland started to do it, you know, a lot of the producers started to mess around with the sound and started to like speed their beats up a little bit. And then that is where the music got its respect from, was the major industry producers. And that's when America started to invite people like myself and Adam F and Goldie and, you know, to America to come and get involved in it. And then they put it down again because they didn't quite understand how to do it. But now, do you know what I mean? It's like you go everywhere, all over the world. you know, you got Net Sky, who's from Belgium. You have, you know, you got people from Germany. You have people from Holland. You have now all these major artists, bigger than Roni Size. You know what I mean? Bigger than drum and bass. You know what I mean? All over the world now who are massive. You have people like, you know, 12th Planet. You have your guy like Borgel. You know, from here, you know, the music is now, because dubstep to me is the little brother of drum and bass. You know what I mean? And trap music is the cousin. You know, and they kind of all work together, you know, in some way or another. But for me, you know what I mean, the root cause of it all was, you know, was jungle music. That's the rawness of that jungle music. So it's crazy now, like dubstep is just so big, it's so massive, it can only go one way. It can only come back down to its reality check. And you go to America, I went to America recently, I could not believe the numbers of people into dubstep. It is absolutely gigantic. Like, you know, I'm talking like thousands and thousands of people in fields listening to this music. And like I said, Borgel, I'm sure, is from here. He's an Israeli, a producer, and he's pretty well smashed it. So that's my opinions as well, then.
You had a vision? You had a vision for your creation? Did you understand or felt or thought about this journey that you're gonna have in your life?
No. It's like, you know, you do have a vision, but that vision changes. It doesn't matter what vision you have. And the reason why it changes, because you allow people into your inner circle and then people contribute. It's no fun making music by yourself in a room. Do you know what I mean? At least have one other person there. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you can't be a band and just play bass and then play the drum, and you can, but it's not really no fun. Like, you end up looking at yourself going, yeah, it's great. It's like, you know, to me, it's like, you know, the more you've got in the mix, the more cooks, sometimes not too many, but the more cooked, the right cooks, it's the more fruits come. You know what I mean? I like big bands like Funkadelic. You know, it's like 500 people. There's loads of them, but it sounds great, right? You know, it's just layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and more layers, and I love my layers. I like simple, but I like layers. You know, so the vision changes. That's my point. You know, as soon as you add people into the mix. But for me, having this next episode, I don't have a clue what to expect, and I'm looking forward to that because your audience changes. The audience is really, now I go out and they're a lot younger. You know, I hope tonight's gonna not just be just one age. I hope it's gonna be a varied age. You know, I want to tune into the younger generation. You know, it's quite you know, overwhelming sometimes when you go out and you play in front of 18-year-olds and they're like, who? Oh, what's your name? Oh, great set. What's your name? Oh, we got a SoundCloud. So, that's the reality of it. It's like, you know, these kids have no clue about the history, and why should they? Unless I'm out there giving them the history. That's just the way it is. And that is the challenge as well. That's the biggest challenge. And it's quite, you know, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but, you know, I'm proud of my history. But now, you know, I've got my Bruce Lee look on. I'm ready to go forward.
I can tell that we have 2 more questions. And then we're gonna...
Yeah. How about you guys, man? It's like, you know, go on, there's got to be one person.
Okay. So you were talking about layers in music production. So if we come like to say like back to those days, they were like mostly musicians, and the stress was like on the eclipse moment was when the dialogue of all the musicians on the stage comes to something concrete, and both in the groove and both in the terms of music development. So when you are producing layers, is there is that legitimate to think in the like musician or band terms? And if yes, then how to create all those conversions, how to make all those little improvisations regardless in which layer are you to converge to that eclipse moment?
Now that is a big question right there. You know what I mean? I'm going to pull that myself. That's a massive question. No, it is. It's like when I first started, do you know what I mean? I didn't care about what bands did. Do you know what I mean? And then as I created the band, all I cared about is what bands did. So bands on stage, you learn about how the sound works and the layers, and you learn about what key to start in. When you make a record, there's certain places you with the hertz and with the where you start. So as long as everyone starts in the right key, then the frequencies are never gonna clash. And that's very important. If you go too low down the scale, then it doesn't really gel together. The actual way the sound works, it doesn't gel together because the bass is too low, 20 hertz is not covering the kick drum, which is da-da-da-da-da-da, all boring stuff. But on stage, it's majorly important because what happens on stage is like you have monitors, whereas nowadays you have in-ears. I actually got my in-ears with me. They're like not monitors in your ears, but back in the day, when shit started to feed back, all the worst bands would play loud on stage, so everything came down the mics and it sounded terrible. And all the best bands would play low on stage where the layers sounded great and you could really hear the front of the house get louder and louder. Now in the studio, it was more importantly to have everyone playing loud so everything was bleeding down the mics. So when you record it, you didn't just get the instrument, you got the bleed. So you get the sound of the, do you know what I say, the bleed? It means like, if it's the guitar, that was going down the drum mic, and so the drums was getting a bit of the guitar mic, all that stuff. The bleed is what made the sound, and that was back in the day, that why Roy Ayers and all those bands were starting to sound, how'd you get that sound? They didn't know. It was the engineer. It was like the bleed was going down the mics, and they tried to do that again. They tried to gate the bleed out, let's get rid of the bleed, and then they didn't get the same sound. It became cleaner, so they never had that raw sound. So on stage, I think no bleed, as low and those layers in the right frequency, in the right key, in the right concert pitch. But in the studio, it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's like you can, I think, yeah, you start at the right place on the keyboard. You know what I mean? Like if it's like C sharp or, A sharp, where it resonates, you can get a graph nowadays and tells you where 60 hertz is. It'll tell you where 60 on the keyboard, so you know that. And that's where you want your nice, warm sub bass in the middle. If you wanted to start flapping your flare bottoms, right, you go down to 20 hertz, 30 hertz, it's like, you want your snares kicking around about 200 hertz. You want your nice highs, going right up to 20. Maybe shelf it down a little bit. But that's, to me, that's the layers. You know what I mean? And I hope I answered your question. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. Thanks. That's nice. Without waffling, but I'm very passionate about the dynamics of sound in the studio and on the stage. Very passionate about that. Go on.
I was wondering what was your biggest challenge in combining electronic beats and live sets?
That's right. So the biggest challenge, when we first started Represent as a band, we made the album, and then we went back into the record company and we said, here's the album. And then they turned around to us and he goes, okay, now we need to, when are you gonna go live? I was like, live? I didn't even think about going live. So we had to then convert all the stuff that we did in samplers on the stage and make it live. So we started triggering samples, first of all. That's how we started to do it. And then eventually we got musicians in to replace the samples. And then the next album we made after that, we made sure that we didn't use any samples. We just started off with musicians, but we still kept the vibe of like it was a sample. So that was the challenge, and it was hard. It was a slow process. I'll tell you that much. Very hard.
Same subject. I want to ask about layer in live, when you play live with the band, with the acoustic drums and the upright bass, layering, I don't know, hi-hats or electronic drums from sample on the drummer, on the acoustic drums. How it works?
I tell you, that's a great question as well, because we've tried to do it so many different ways. For those who don't know, with Represent, we're an 8-piece band, and we're very well known for having a double bass. So when we first started off, it was a real double bass. It was a big, and it used to feed back, and that was just a nightmare. Then we've got this nice, slender, thin double bass now, which is electric, which sounds fantastic. Some of them sound shit, right? But this one that we've got sounds brilliant. So when we do brown paper bag, boom, boom, You know, it sounds like brown paper bag, which is really cool. So trying to get that with the drums, we tried so many electronic kits, sounded so bad. Do you know what I mean? The live drums never sounded quite right. You know, so we combined the two and it worked. It was okay, but there was a bit of latency between the real snare and the electronic snare. So there's like, you could really hear it. It was just a little bit loose. But then, now, the logic is, we use two drummers. We've got Yuval, doing all the nice rolling stuff, and then we've got the other drummer, and it sounds great. When you've got the two drummers together, they've both got a kick on, it sounds fantastic. Put the bass in there, put some sub bass in there, and you've got this wall of sound which is just lovely. You know, I would just always go for two drummers every day of the week. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing this kind of music, you know. And if you want to see two drummers, look at Nerd, NERD with Pharrell. They do it quite spectacularly as well. So that's.
Do you compress them together?
Huh?
Do you compress the two kits together?
Say that again. Sorry.
Do you compress the two kits together, or you use different?
You know what? That's a front of the house question. You know, I would compress everything. Do you know what I mean? Just like, you know, just put a compressor on it. Is there a compressor on it? I do. You know, I compress everything, saturate everything, saturation. But you know, it depends on front of the house, and it depends on the room. Every room changes. When you're performing live, you know, hit the snare, hit the hi-hats. You know, the second delay is ridiculous. You know. I feel sorry for the drummers. They got the most shit to carry. Drum kit. I'm like USB key later. I'm going to the after party.
How do you keep the creativity in your beats?
How do I keep?
When I'm trying to write drum and bass or dubstep, it sounds the same. Like
Oh,
same rhythm.
How does it sound different?
Yeah.
How do you make your sound different?
The rhythm, not the sound.
Oh, the rhythm.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's like I said, it's like house music. You know, when we talk about house music or techno music, we think of. So drum and bass and jungle music, well, drum and bass has become, yeah, and dubstep, it's become, you know, pretty stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I still feel that I've not put any music out for a little while, and when people hear my music, they go, "Oh, but it sounds different from what the stuff that's out there now." And I'm like, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Because I try to keep my shit rolling. It doesn't matter what I do, I try to keep it rolling. It's just all day, every day. It's just got to be rolling. You got to keep it exciting. So you got to have a good library as well. You know, and you know, if you got your own unique library, then I think you'll always sound a bit different from everyone else. If you go to the presets and you start using Chaser Status presets, you're going to sound like bloody Chaser Status. You know, if you start using like, you know, dubstep presets, everything, oh yeah, I want to make dubstep, go to dub. If you want to make dubstep, go to a bloody ballad preset. You know what I mean? And try something, you know, see what they've got to offer. Do something a bit different, you know? Just don't go to the presets. That's what my honest opinion is.
Okay.
So, like, in the studio, you are a painter of your own free soul. You can do anything. You can get down to any level of complexity and tweak every sound as you like, and be less loopish, and you know, whatever it comes, and sample whatever you want just in that very millisecond. And then comes the moment of translation into live. When you have, you must be like, well, of course, not you as completely, but you cannot control as many subtleties as you can get.
But that's the great thing about performing live. It should never sound the same twice. You know, there's two types of live. Mm-hmm. There's not live, and then there's live.
Right.
And when I mean not live, it means like you've got Ableton, you press play, and then everyone plays along with what's going on Ableton. And then there's live, where everyone just plays along. You know, if you do the Ableton route, or whatever it is, that you just press play, then you're not really live, you're performing. And it's cool, and I like that because it sounds great, you know what I mean? But if you're, you know, Radiohead, you're not gonna be playing Ableton, are you? You're gonna play it live, you know what I'm saying, live songs. And that's, you know, there's always gonna be room for maneuver when you play live. And it's good to have mistakes as well. because you learn from those mistakes.
So where is the, do you have any kinds of tips for the proper translation, like, for example, the setup tips, how to make a perfect setup that will allow room for improvisation and, you know, to keep it really alive instead of, you know, just switching loops? Yeah,
do you know what? You gotta work that one out. You gotta work what works for you. It's like, you know, that questionnaire is quite broad, because we just have each member in our team just like, look, we need to recreate that, then recreate that. So me personally, I use Contact, and I have my layers on Contact, and I have it all there, all mapped out on my keys. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Which really works for me. You know, what I'll do, I'll go into the studio and I'll maybe, you know, just make my own setup so it just works. I want to look good on stage as well. I don't like it when I'm like, both hands are down there. I want to look like this. Do you know what I mean? I want to look like a rock star. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be like hands down there, all this kind of crap. I mean, I want to be like that every time. Bass down there, drum sounds up here, whatever. Nothing in the middle. That's not me, but that's, you know, that's a personal thing. So my answer to that is, yeah, it's got to be personal. You choose what you like and work out how to do it, and you have your team. Your team will, you know, help you to decide what's the best route to go. Most people just go and press play and say, and give it loads of hands.
Okay, the last question from me is, did you ever thought about stop making music?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'm a father. You know, I have 4 children, and my oldest child is 25, and you know, and my youngest is 8. And you know, you miss out on some of the stuff. I love doing the school runs. I love doing that stuff. I love going and picking up the child from school, and there are times when you think, you know, I love doing that. You know, when your child comes out of school crying because some boys just called her name, and if I wasn't there to be there when she was in tears, then, you know, I would feel so bad. So all the times that I've missed parts of my life with my children is my sacrifice to them, but the music has been my first love. And there's points where you think, you know what, I'm just gonna be a father. But now my kids, like, they understand now, they're older, and they're like, go on, Dad, go and do what you're doing. You know, don't worry, it's cool. So I mean, we understand, you know. So yeah, there are times when you think about, you know, you need to, and that's the only reason, because your family commitments, the stuff you miss out on.
Great. Let's have a break for 5 minutes and continue. Cool?